for those people familiar with Dune, maybe it hasn't occurred to you, but the major action scene in the first 80 pages is Paul sticks his hand in a box. Dune is one of these really hard books to film.
What's the difference between writing a graphic novel, a novel, or a comic book?
Well, comic book is usually just the monthly 22-page, they're called flippies, the little magazine-sized things. And sometimes, and I've done a bunch of these, that you just do a long 6-issue story arc and they collect those 6 issues into a volume. So that's like a graphic novel. But I've also written, in fact, one of my biggest ones is Brian Herbert and I did Dune, the graphic novel, where we took Frank Herbert's novel and did a scene-by-scene adaptation of the novel into a comic format. And those are in 3 big volumes from Abrams Books. That was a New York Times bestseller, won some awards. It just got named one of the top 100 graphic novels of all time. So did pretty well. But the insight was really interesting because again, I revere that novel so much, and it is such a classic that, unlike filmmakers who decide that they're going to take a great work and just do their own thing with it, we actually felt we didn't want to improve or adapt Frank Herbert's book. We wanted to actually just do the way Frank wrote it, and scene by scene, what the novel is. And the learning experience, because I'm sure you know, because it's pretty classic and legendary, that Dune is one of these really hard books to film.
Yeah.
And they've been trying for so long, and it's the legendary movie that just came out a couple of years ago. That was the 3rd one. There was the David Lynch one that came out in 1984, I think. And there was a Sci-Fi Channel miniseries that was 2000 and something, 3 or 4. And then the big one with Timothy Chalamet and Jason Momoa. That's a 3rd attempt. Writing this graphic novel adaptation of it really showed me that that's a very, very difficult book to adapt visually, because the first 80 pages are all world building and cerebral stuff and explaining how the politics works and what's happening. And for those people familiar with Dune, maybe it hasn't occurred to you, but the major emotionally intense, the major action scene in the first 80 pages is Paul sticks his hand in a box and everything goes in his mind. I mean, that's a very intense scene where he's got his hand and she's Reverend Mother Mohayam has the poison needle to his neck, and he can't take his hand out of the box, and the pain is getting worse and worse, but he can't see anything. But that's all psychological stuff. If you're showing it, it's not a very action-packed scene, some kid with his hand in a box and he can't move. So our graphic novel is our interpretation of it, and Denis Villeneuve did a very good job of it in Dune Part 1, I think, conveying everything. But Dune, the novel, doesn't open with a starship exploding and then a war happening and all kinds of stuff. It's a slow burn until they get to the planet Arrakis, and then things start happening.
It was interesting, having just watched the movie again last night. I hadn't seen it since it first came out. And I will admit, when it first came out, I had a hard time kind of keeping up with everything because there's so much world building that's going on in so many terms. And I had the subtitles on last night, so that really helped me. I could read what they were saying, because there was a lot of unfamiliar words that are being said. And that scene that you're talking about, where he puts his hand in the box, was actually incredibly intense for me last night. And I think he portrayed that through Rebecca Ferguson's reactions, when you see the mother reacting to what he's going through and how it's just destroying her. It just made it so much more impactful. And I thought it was, Denis has this way of creating something without spectacle that is incredibly powerful. I think he did it with Arrival. I think he did it again with Dune. And the movie just hit me in a whole different way. And
when you read that scene in the book, I mean, you're on the edge of your seat. It's like, it's very intense, but a movie has to convey it in a different way. And I thought they did a great job of it, but that just really, when I was writing the comic adaptation of it, it's like, well, what do I show here? He's just sitting there, and it's a challenge.
So when you are writing a comic, what's the difference format wise? You're just writing text of what they're saying, and then you're describing an image?
Well, a comic script is the closest thing to a film or TV
Mhm.
show script. I mean,
Mhm.
it literally is page one, panel one, describe the panel, put the dialogue in, and then panel two, describe the panel, put the dialogue in, panel three, describe the panel. So it's like writing a movie script for a slideshow, if that makes any sense,
Okay,
because comics are visual, but they're one frame at a time.
right.
And and it has to be compact, because especially if you're doing a monthly comic, you have 22 pages, period. You don't get to go over. It's not like streaming where your hour show can maybe be 70 minutes if you need it.
Right.
No, it's if like old network, you were 50 minutes or 60 minutes of commercials and all this stuff. It actually had to follow a very rigid format. And even more on a comic book, like especially Dune, because Dune is big and visual, and also my Star Wars stuff. You like to do these beautiful 2-page spreads to show all of the
Mhm.
artwork, the starship coming in. Well, think about it. The 2-page spread actually has to start with an even numbered page on the left side and an odd numbered page on the right side.
Mhm.
So if you're writing a script and go 2-page spread, you got to make sure that you've staged it so that you can have a 2-page spread, because 2-page spread, that's you have to turn the page for it, doesn't work.
Doesn't.
So it's a cool, I mean, it's a skill that you have to do, but I grew up reading comics like crazy, so it's kind of natural for me.